If you are part of the coin collecting community and part of the stacking community, and that's kind of the focus on my channel, it's kind of crossing that bridge between the two, coin collecting and precious metal stacking. We have been inundated with information, with videos, with commentary and comments about the 2024 flowing hair silver medal from the United States Mint. You're looking at an example of it here. This is an unusual piece. This is something that we kind of haven't seen before, exactly the way that this piece has been done. But this video, I want to focus on something that's going on with the gold version of this metal that I think a lot of folks who are not hardcore collectors might not be aware of. And this is a really interesting precedent-setting kind of development by the United States Mint. And I wanted to discuss it a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts about it. If you are new to the channel, my name is Dub C. I want to thank you for being with me here today. If you're one of my returning subscribers, you guys know that I really appreciate you joining me on this another journey deeper into coins and precious metals. If you are coming back to the channel after maybe a couple, 3 visits, and you haven't subscribed, I'd like to encourage you to go ahead and click on that subscription button, become part of this community. I like to premiere videos on Friday evenings. I try to kick out a new video once a week, and I'm usually there to answer questions, to discuss with you, to talk about current events and everything else that's going on. So hopefully you're joining me on a Friday night, and if you're not, I encourage you to stop by next Friday, and maybe we'll be premiering another video. Sometimes I even go live afterwards so we can take yet another deeper dive into the subject, talk about anything you want to talk about. So the 2024 flowing hair silver coin. Now, I did a video about these when I kind of took a deeper dive. I know a lot of folks have created videos where they've talked about their experiences with them, and that's awesome. I'd love to see that other content from content creators on YouTube. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper into it. That's what my videos tend to do. We go maybe a little bit deeper into the subject that we're talking about. And in the video that I shot on this, I actually went live after that, and I unboxed one of my examples of the silver version of this metal because there are certain of these pieces that have a very special privy mark. Really briefly, a privy mark is just a design that's printed into the surface of a coin that conveys a lot of information. It's not entirely unlike a mint mark. And if you're interested in taking a deeper dive into these pieces, I'll put a link to that video below, and I'll also put a link to the unboxing that I did immediately following that video. For those of us at a maybe a slightly older age, you probably remember Geraldo Rivera opening up the Gangster's Vault on live TV, and there was nothing in it. If you're younger, ask your parents about it. But kind of the same situation, right? Most of us who did the unboxing of these were hoping that it would have the special privy mark. The Mint struck 75,000 of these pieces, but only 1,794, and that's kind of the celebration, right? The 1794 date. So the Mint tied that together and made 1,794 of these pieces that have that very special 230th anniversary privy mark on them. So these pieces retailed for about $100. The prices are starting to drop a little bit in the aftermarket. I've seen examples selling for $275, $325, or something like that. I expect those to continue to pull back as the market is saturated, as the next new thing comes along. And there were 230 of those 1,794 that did have the special privy mark that were a hand-signed COA by the Director of the United States Mint. So there was the regular piece, which is kind of interesting. There are the pieces that have the privy mark, 1,794 of those, and 230 of those had a specially signed COA. Now, that's different levels of collectability, right? The United States Mint puts out collectible coins all the time. It's something we've done since the beginning of the Mint. These are proof sets. These are specially made medals or whatever else the Mint wants to put out that they think that the American public might be interested in buying. And I don't really have a problem with that. In fact, I'm not 100% sure that I have a problem with how the Mint is handling the gold versions of these. But there is something very unusual about it. And again, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here. A shorter video than maybe some of my other videos. I don't know. I want to get your opinion. I really am encouraging you to give me your thoughts about this. And I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts as we go along. And my thoughts can be tainted by my experience. So it's entirely possible that what I'm going to be describing from my perspective may not be what your perspective is. And that's kind of why I want your comments down below. I'd love to be able to read those comments, and I encourage everybody else who's watching this video, if you have an opinion about this, make your opinion known, and let's kind of compare notes about this. So the silver medal. Why do I keep on calling it a silver medal instead of a silver dollar? That's an excellent question. The Mint did not monetize these, and there is a segment of the population inside numismatics in the coin collecting community who feels like that was a mistake. I am one of those folks. This is not a silver dollar. This is a 2021 peace dollar released by the United States Mint. It's made out of silver. It was designed to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 1921 peace dollar. That was the first year that the the peace dollar was made. And then following that, we released a series of 1921, actually at the same time, the 2021 Morgan dollars. We made a series of those also. What you're seeing here behind the piece, these are reverse proofs of the Morgan and the peace dollar for 2023, and the Mint has just recently released the same for 2024. So there is a growing body of pieces that the United States Mint has released that are commemorative, solid silver examples of classic American silver coins. I was excited when they announced the release of these. I bought most of them that I could get my hands on, and I think it was an exciting development. Now, if you watch the flowing hair frenzy video that I did earlier, you know in that discussion that several folks were talking about the Mint releasing other classic designs of American silver dollars, and they are going to be doing that. I understand that the capped bust silver dollar or half dollar, I'm not entirely sure which way they're moving. Some of the other earlier American silver dollars will be released. I'd love to put in a plug in case the United States Mint is watching. I'd love to see the trade dollar released. I think that would be a really neat development. So there is a precedent for this. What makes this unusual is the fact that this is not monetized. The United States Mint was not able to make this a silver dollar because that has to be an act of Congress, and Congress was either unwilling or unable to get together in the time that was needed in order to strike these for the 230th anniversary. Again, a little bit of a strange anniversary, but go with me on this. So these, while they look like a flowing hair silver dollar, and I want to say that I think the Mint did an excellent job of releasing these. I think that the design is beautiful. I like the 75,000 mintage of them. I think that's appropriate. The idea of putting the privy mark on it was kind of fun because you didn't know, right? And in fact, I still have an example that's sealed here, and I called it in that video Schrodinger's flowing hair because until I open this, I'm going to assume that this actually is one of those pieces that has the privy mark on it. So this is an example that I unboxed, and of course it did not have the privy mark on it. So I think that was an appropriate level of excitement that really generated some interest. This was kind of a fascinating thing. And then we get to the gold release. Now, the gold release is different in a lot of ways. First off, this was never struck in gold. We know that there were examples that were struck in copper, our early examples, die trials. But to our knowledge, the United States Mint never struck one of these in gold. That's not that unusual, right? The Mint has a history of doing that as well. In fact, in 2016 and a little bit later, we released classic examples of the 1916 Mercury dime, the 1916 Buffalo nickel. The Kennedy half dollar has been released in gold before. So this isn't that unusual. It's maybe a little bit unusual. But the way that the Mint went about releasing these is really unusual. The mintage on the flowing hair gold version, and you're looking at a picture of it here. Now, I want to say that I think it's beautiful. I do think this is beautiful. If you didn't know, because gold is much more dense than silver, the gold version of this piece is really only about the size of a half dollar. That's how much more dense gold is than silver, and it's exactly 1 troy ounce. I want to say it's 4 nines fine, too. A little bit unusual, right? This is something that is an interesting decision to make out of 4 nines fine pure gold, but because it's 1 troy ounce, it has to be significantly smaller than the silver. Gold is just much more dense, so it's really about the size of a half dollar. Now, I do think the Mint did a fantastic job. This piece is beautiful, undeniably. I have kind of mixed thoughts of the specimen type relief surfaces that the Mint has used on the modern uncirculated silver pieces like this and this. it's a little bit muted. And I know that the mint probably did that intentionally for me. I'd like to have a little bit more luster to it, but we can argue about the positives and negatives of the aesthetic, the style that the mint went with. The fact of the matter is that I think this is undeniably a beautiful piece. I think they did a really nice job of it. It's edge marked, and that's really cool. They did a nice job of that too. 17,500 pieces struck. Now that's considerably smaller than the silver pieces, right, at 75,000. 230 of those will have the gold, the privy mark, the 230 privy mark. Now compare that to 1,794 of the silver that had the privy mark. Why don't we just pick it up and take a look at it, right? In case you haven't had a chance to see one of these. Beautiful, right? That's a beautiful coin. I think that the mint really did a nice job of this. And that's the reverse. And it's very close to the original. You know, it's not perfect. I think the mint did a really nice job of kind of capturing the feel of the original without it having some of the flaws that maybe the original did. So overall, aesthetically pleasing. I think it's really beautiful. 1,750 of the gold, 230 of those with the privy mark, as opposed to 1,794 on the silver with the privy mark. Unlike the silver, the gold version was monetized. So that means it is an official coin. And I know that's a kind of a strange distinction. You really have to understand numismatics to appreciate that. This piece never monetized. While it looks like a United States silver dollar, is not technically a silver dollar. It is a metal. The peace dollar, the 2021 peace dollar, it is a dollar. The Morgan dollar, 2022, 23 and 23 piece, the reverse proof, they are technically dollars. This is a metal. And it's a distinction, and I think it's an important distinction. The gold coin is monetized. How much is it worth? What's its face value? Its face value is $1. It's strange, right? This is a full troy ounce of 9999 pure gold. And as I'm filming, gold is somewhere north of $2,500 an ounce. So to have a face value of $1, it doesn't just seem arbitrary like it is on the American Gold Eagle. The full-size 1-ounce American Gold Eagle has a $50 face value. So it seems a little bit peculiar that these would have a $1 face value. But I'm willing to go with it. The mint released this. It is a version of the flowing hair dollar, so I guess it makes sense that it would be monetized and valued with a face value of $1. Interesting. All 230 of the pieces that were struck with the privy mark are not going to be available through the United States Mint. And this is where we start to diverge, and this is what I think is flying under the radar. In fact, you may not even know that this is going on. All 230 of the pieces of the gold version that have been struck with the privy mark were already been slabbed by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service. And every single one of those 230 pieces with the privy mark are being offered through the private auction company, Stack's Bowers. I happen to like Stack's Bowers quite a bit. I happen to like PCGS quite a bit. But there is something that seems a little strange about this. The silver pieces were offered to the main distributors, the qualified distributors that handle a lot of the mint's products. The gold pieces were being offered exclusively, the 230 that were originally released, were being, with the privy mark, were being offered only through Stack's Bowers. In fact, that auction hasn't happened yet. And I think this is a little bit strange. If you, spun the wheel, threw the dice, whatever you want to call it, and you bought one of the silver versions of this, you had a chance of getting that special privy mark on your piece. And that meant that this coin was worth 10 times what you just paid for it, 20 times what you just paid for it. That was kind of fun. It built excitement, right? That was a fun thing for the mint to have done. And if you were one of those 230 really lucky people that got the privy mark, you actually got that signed certificate of authentication. I think that that was kind of a fun thing too. That's not the case with the gold. The gold pieces that are struck with the privy mark, all 230 of them, already slabbed by PCGS, and they are all being offered through auction company Stack's Bowers. This is a private company. So what does that mean? I think it kind of means that the average Joe doesn't have much of a chance of getting one of these. Why is that? The original sales price for the gold piece when they went on sale was north of $3,000, right? About $3,500. That's a heavy lift for a lot of people, right? $3,500 to come up with for a 1 ounce gold coin is not cheap. But the evidence is that these pieces are selling on the retail market after having been released north of that. So if you bought one for $3,500, you're maybe able to sell it for $4,000 right now, maybe even a little bit north of that. That's not a bad return on investment. But the fact that you had no chance of getting one of these with the privy mark on it randomly, I think is a little bit strange. So what has the Mint done? They are offering these through Stack's Bowers, and the auction will happen December 12th, 2024. That's when it closes. The auction is already up. In fact, I'll include the link down below so you can go peruse this auction and see these pieces with the privy mark. So why does this matter? It's just a fascinating turn of events, and I'm not sure exactly what it is going to be saying about the future of mint-related products. And that's maybe kind of my concern about this. Now, the auction happens December 12th of 2024. If you watch my channel before, you know that I tend to make what we call evergreen videos. I like broad subjects. I like subjects that will continue to be of interest to folks 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years down the road. I like to discuss kind of the fundamentals of precious metals. I like to discuss certain series when it comes to coins, and again, bridging that gap between the two. So this is an unusual video for old Dub C to be making, because if you're watching this after December 12th of 2024, you already know the answer to all of these questions, and that will be kind of interesting to see also. So this auction closes December 12th of 2024. Each of these pieces graded by PCGS. The very first example of these, and this is one of the interesting things about these pieces, is that PCGS and the US Mint have designated the order in which these 230 privy marked examples of the gold coins have been struck. So we know by looking at the label of these, this is 1 of 230, this is 2 of 230, and so forth. And what's kind of interesting about this is that the number 1 example, and that's going to be the primary thing that we're talking about here, is MS70, right? This is an MS70 deep cam. This is an interesting coin when you're looking at it. It's about the highest designation, actually, rather, I'm sorry, a proof 70 decam. These are all in proof. It's a fine distinction. I believe that these pieces are being called mint state, right? The silver versions. The gold ones are actually being made what they call a proof. Now, the designation doesn't really matter that much because there's such a limited series, but the mint could have made this any way they wanted to. They could have made the gold version that didn't have these reflective, highly reflective mirrored fields. But number 1 of the 230 that's being offered by Stack's Bowers, graded proof 70D cam. That means deep cameo. That is arguably the very highest quality coin that the United States Mint can make. Coins are graded on a scale of 1 to 70. We call that the Sheldon scale. 70 is really almost a theoretically high grade. Now, if you're talking about modern pieces being made after maybe 1970, it's not that unusual to see mint products that are coming out in 70 condition, but we sure don't have much history of them before that, right? These are just, it's almost an anomaly of minting that the mint can actually produce a 70. But PCGS has designated this piece a proof 70, and it has that deep cameo designation as well. So that is arguably the highest possible quality coin that the United States Mint can put out. Really briefly, proof a manufacturing process. It doesn't really go into the reflect on the quality of the coin, other than the fact that it's a 70, right? A mint release piece, a circulation strike is what we would call this. This too can be a 70. Proofs are graded on a scale 1 to 70, the scale of 1 to 70, just like business strike pieces are. So it's not that unusual that a proof would be a 70. In fact, we kind of expect that coins are proof 70s when they were released from the mint. But this is a proof. It's a specially made coin for collectors. I know it's a little bit of a difficulty in trying to kind of talk about the difference, and I've done lots of videos where we talk about the fact that proof is a manufacturing process. A circulation strike can never be a proof, no matter how fantastic it is. It's a circulation strike. It's a business strike. Proofs are also graded on that scale of 1 to 70, and a proof can be a 70. And in case of number 1, of the 230 privy marked pieces, it is a proof 70 deep cameo. Again, one of the highest, arguably the highest possible quality that a coin can be made in. So that's interesting. And you wouldn't expect anything less, right? Gold is a very soft metal, so it's not surprising that the mint got the dies correctly aligned and produced with the right abilities, and they're striking these under very high pressure. So it's not unusual that this piece would be a proof 70 deep cam, highest possible coin. And the original, the number one here, this is the most important one. This piece is being sold, and you're looking at images of it here. It's actually being sold with a lot of additional ephemera. This is something that we don't normally see. It's being sold in a special phone box, a special box that some folks are calling a telephone box. You'll see what I'm talking about here. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's a special presentation box. This is unusual. This is something kind of strange, kind of interesting, kind of exciting. But it's kind of to build the hype about this number one of 230. It's an exciting development for the mint. But what's also really cool is that the very dies that were used to strike this coin will be included in the auction for this coin only. The dies, the hardened pieces of steel that have the design cut into them that a coin is actually made from. The two pieces of metal come together and strike the blank planchet, and that's what makes a coin. So this coin, number one of 230, is being offered with those dies in a special presentation box, in a special slab that indicates that it's a Proof 70 Deep Cameo and it's number one of this entire series. What does that mean? It means that the United States Mint is kind of manufacturing a rarity. Now, you could see these pieces being a manufactured rarity in the fact that they made so few of them in the first place, 1,750. Incidentally, that 1,750 number has been confirmed by the Mint. There is some speculation that the Mint is holding back a certain number of these gold pieces and is also holding back a certain number of the silver pieces in anticipation of releasing a set of the two together. That's something that the Mint has obviously done in the past. It wouldn't be surprising. I don't think that's going to happen, but I've been wrong about this kind of thing before. The Mint has already indicated that they've struck the entire 1750 of the gold. There is some speculation the Mint has only struck 50,000 of the 75,000 silver. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy, and we're not sure if that's just manufacturing details, if they haven't entered their records correctly, or what other statistics people are looking at. It's conceivable that there are still a number of the silver pieces that could be struck. I'm not entirely sure that I believe that either, but it's an interesting thing to think about. The number one of the 230 gold pieces that do carry that special privy mark, that is going to be in the special presentation box we call a telephone box, that does come with the actual canceled dies. You're seeing the X's that are slashed through that. That's so nobody can reuse those dies. But it's a very exciting thing. The Mint used to offer these way in the past, these canceled dies, and then they started actually completely grinding off the details of the coin so you couldn't even make it out. I'm excited that the Mint is canceling these kind of the old school way with a great big X through them so that you couldn't use them to strike coins. Now, as an aside, some people have struck coins based on canceled dies before. If it's a particularly rare coin, there's a couple of examples, I believe, in the Morgan Dollar series that people have used those canceled dies to strike privately issued pieces that show that cancellation, that X across the surface. And those pieces have become quite popular also. So could these be used in the same manner? I suppose they could. Why am I going on and on about number one of this? As I am filming, and this is the Monday before Thanksgiving, so again, this is going to be a very topical video for me. I don't normally do things that are this on point for this period of time. The number one of the series has already reached $170,000 bids on Stack's Bauer's website. That is unusual. And it's a little bit unexpected, at least from my perspective. Again, when these were initially issued, $3,500, give or take. And on the secondary market, they are selling for as much as $4,000, maybe $5,000 a piece. Number one, with the canceled dies and the special presentation box, is already bid up to $170,000. Now again, if you're watching this after December 12th, and I encourage those folks who are watching it before December 12th, keep an eye on this. This is fascinating. This is groundbreaking. This is something that we have never seen before. This piece could eclipse $250,000. In fact, it could zoom way past that. There are some that are speculating this piece will hit the $1 million mark. I don't know. I honestly don't know, right? We don't have a history of this. And this is the complication. This is what's making me scratch my head. And this is what seems almost like an ethical dilemma that the Mint has put itself into a position of doing. The United States Mint is manufacturing a known rarity. And that's something that I don't really think they've done before. Now, before you get on me about things like the 1804 silver dollars, I'm very much aware of that, if you didn't know. Called the king of American coins, called the king of the Morgan Dollar series, the 1804 silver dollars, rather of the flowing hair series, the 1804 silver dollars were early silver dollars that were struck as presentation pieces for dignitaries. And they weren't struck in 1804. We know that the Mint struck dollars in 1804, but we suspect that they were actually 1803 dated dollars because those dies, remember we talked about those, the canceled dies. The dies lasted sometimes a little bit longer than we expected them to, and these were essentially hand-cut, handmade dies. This was an expensive and laborious process to make these pieces. So it's not unusual that the United States Mint would continue to make them in 1804 with that same 1803 date, right? The date is actually cut into the die. You can't change that, not very easily. So the Mint has done this before. They made special presentation pieces for special dignitaries, and these were struck decades after 1804. So it almost seems like a manufactured rarity, right? With the Mint only made a handful of these. And they have done the same thing in the past. I want to say that some of these pieces very much similar to this. In fact, the 1804, some of them may have been done the same way. There were early collectors of American coinage, and when the Smithsonian Institute was building its collection of American coins, remember the Smithsonian is kind of the museum of everything American, they were missing key pieces. So they were able to get some of those key pieces from some of the biggest collectors at the time in exchange for some of these kind of manufactured rarities, right? Pieces that were made for special collectors. This is something that was done for many years in Russia. Some of the earliest coins were actually restruck and re-engineered for those collectors who, for some reason or another, were missing a special piece from their collection, or if these pieces had never been struck, in the case of the 1804 dollars, kind of the same thing, made for special collectors who had the money, that had the influence, that had the ability to ask for these pieces and to repay the Mint however the Mint needed to be repaid. So there is a little bit of a precedence of this, but I can't really think of another example in the modern era where the Mint has knowingly produced an incredibly rare American coin that is highly sought after, that is highly advertised, where the Mint isn't allowing the public to buy this piece randomly. In fact, we already know what the mintage of these are, and this is an incredibly small mintage, right? 17,500 is incredibly small. 230 pieces with the privy mark, that is incredibly small. The Mint is manufacturing something that they already know will be a scarcity, a rarity, and you can't have it. This is a little bit unusual, right? It's just not quite as egalitarian as I'd like to think the United States Mint should be, right? They should be making coins for us, for everybody. So the fact that number one is already bid up to $170,000, and again, check before, as this video is being released, it is entirely possible it will be significantly higher than that. And again, it could sell for $1 million, maybe more. I would say that $250,000 is certainly not out of the question. Maybe $500,000 is not out of the question. We don't know where it's going to close. This is an exciting coin. It's a beautiful coin. It's incredibly rare. It's being sold with the dies. If you have any interest in the series, this is it. This piece is it. This is the one, right? And that's what collectors see. Nobody will be able to have this except for that one person. Now, anybody who's got the money can pony up for the silver version. If you are lucky enough to have gotten the privy mark on the silver version, that's awesome. If you are having to buy the silver version with the privy mark and the signed COA in the aftermarket, you've got the money, right? It's not going to cost you even $1,000. It's still a heavy lift for a lot of folks, but it is attainable. Once we go up to the gold, and you're talking about between $3,000 and $5,000 for the non-privy marked version, you're already kind of, taking this out of reach of a lot of Americans. But that's the nature of precious metals, right? Not everybody can have as much gold as they want, so that kind of makes sense. But this is different. This is really a very small manufactured rarity that only the most rich people in this country or the world, because there is some speculation that people all over the world are watching these auctions, only the very wealthy will be able to afford this coin. Who else can drop $500,000 on a single ounce of gold? It just seems odd to me, and it seems a little bit unusual. So that's kind of what I wanted your opinion to be. Drop an opinion down below. Let me know what you think about this. Is this perfectly fine? Does this make sense? Do you care at all? Did you pick up the silver? Do you have any interest in the privy marks? Does it matter to you? Something about this just seems almost kind of dangerous. And my fear is that the mint is going to see the dollar signs that are coming across. Stack's Bowers, incidentally, has already agreed to waive the buyer's premium on these auctions, which is very generous of them. If this piece sells for $500,000, they would probably make $50,000 or $100,000 in buyer's premiums. Buyer's premiums is the extra amount that you have to pay. The winner of the auction generally has to pay the auction company that's selling the piece, right? So Stack's Bowers selling 230 of these stands to make a fortune off of these, and they're doing it, I think, probably for the publicity that they're gaining. Again, I like Stack's Bowers. They are a great auction company. But this is unusual. Now, take one more look at this before we go asking for any more comments about this. If you're looking at these, and I'm trying to show images of these as we're talking, just so you can kind of keep this fresh in your mind. The interesting thing is that I believe it's coins number 2 and number 3, and you'll see some of these here. The pieces that were struck after number 1 aren't guaranteed to be a proof 70 deep cameo. In fact, you're looking at an example here that it's a 69. So the bids on the 69s substantially less than the bids on the 70s. And you can look through the series of those 230 and you can find examples that are graded 70. And those are bringing in a lot more money than the 69s, even if the 69s come earlier in that series of 1 to 230. Remember, it actually designates which coin it is of the 230 on the slab. So I think that's kind of an interesting development as well. Should the United States Mint intentionally create a manufactured rarity? Does that make sense? Also, the supremacy clause, and Stack's Bowers mentions this. This is in the Constitution of the United States of America. They're actually referring to the U.S. Constitution. Interesting. Says that states can't charge state tax on the purchase of this coin because it's being offered by the United States Mint and it's made out of precious metals. The supremacy clause in the Constitution says that you can't charge state income tax on that. And I think, or state tax, sales tax on it. I think that that might induce some people who are in a higher tax state to bid on this piece, making it even more interesting to those who have the money to afford it. This becomes a way to kind of circumvent state taxes in a way. Isn't that interesting? There is speculation, again, that only 50,000 of the silver and 10,000 of the gold have been released so far. So it is possible. And if you're watching this in the future, maybe you already know the answer to that question. Did the Mint release a 2-coin set? It's a pretty good bet. I want to say that there's a possibility. Also interesting to note that according to the United States Mint, there were 4 each of the obverse and reverse dies. That's the front and back dies used to strike the gold coins. Of the 230 privy marked pieces. So number 1 isn't the only one that's going to have these dies. I didn't scroll through all of Stack's Bowers. I don't know if they've already designated which one of these pieces will be sold along with a canceled die, but it makes sense that the United States would offer those also. They're not going to reuse them. And these are a valuable commodity once they are an official U.S. Mint used die. So 4 obverse and reverse dies used to strike the 230 privy mark coins, and another 34 obverse and 31 reverse dies used to struck the non-privy marked coins. So it's an interesting development, and I think that the way the gold is flying under the radar, maybe some folks aren't aware that Stack's Bowers, a private auction company, is offering these pieces. You didn't just get a chance to get these randomly like you did with the silver version. There's something kind of fishy about that, right? If you don't have the 10, 15, 20,000 for a later in that series of 230, 218 or 97 or whatever it is. Not all of these are going to carry this sky high premium that number one does, but I guarantee you it's going to be a lot higher than the pieces that were issued to the public. There's something kind of strange about that. Is Stack's Bowers going to make any money off of this? Well, no. The United States Mint is going to make money off of this. Does the United States Mint, an organization that's owned by the American people, have the right to manufacture something that is going to be priced out of the hands of 95% of Americans as they pursue higher dollar profits for their commemorative pieces? And if so, what does that tell us about the future of the United States Mint? My friends in the collecting community who are stamp collectors know exactly where I'm going with this. Is the United States Mint going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg? Are they going to start manufacturing so many of these high dollar rarities that they eventually turn the public off and we have no interest in dealing with them anymore? Conundrums, right? This is an interesting topic. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you are watching this after December 12th, 2024, I encourage you to leave comments down below. Was I right? Was I wrong? Did I make some wrong predictions? I'd love to know. I'm going to be following this. I expect everybody out there to be following this too, unless, of course, you just don't care. Sometimes I don't really think that's a bad position to have either. If you have any questions about the things that we talked about here, leave that question down below. If you have questions about any of these cool pieces here, I'll try to answer those questions also. I'll leave the links down below to the flowing hair frenzy that I did about this silver dollar, or silver medal. See, I almost caught myself. And the video link to the unboxing, although you already know the answer, no, it does not have a privy, because of course the privy is in the piece that I haven't opened yet, right? Schrodinger's flowing hair. If you have suggestions of any other videos you'd like to see me make, by all means leave that comment down below, and I will see if I've got the knowledge and the examples so we can make a video, or maybe even a video series. And if I do, I'll give you a great big shout out. Remember, please like and subscribe. Get the notifications of new videos. Again, I try to release a new video every Friday, so hopefully you're here with me while we're premiering this one and subsequent videos. Always be learning. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as we go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.